Good on you, Jared. Well, we've got both winning coaches on tonight, but you've just upset Jason Dunstall. He's not happy with the forward pocket.
Reigning premiers, they know they can get us, there's no doubt about that, but I'm sure they're sitting there tonight and they'll be thinking that, we're going to provide them with some significant tests.
There are 5 teams left contending for the premiership, and we're the only ones who have beaten the other 4, and none of them have beaten us. So we go in with supreme confidence.
Yes, two men full of confidence as both the Power and the Kangaroos charge into prelim finals. Hello and welcome to On the Couch as we look forward to another great weekend of finals footy. Two men in great finals form. One particularly dressed for the night, Michael, is Jason Dunstall and your good self.
You're right, Jerry. He's not happy.
He's talking about, isn't he?
Relegated to a forward pocket in the best team ever.
I would be privileged to be a part of that.
That's
team.
not what you said before.
No, I would just prefer to be coming out of the goals.
Diesel's already consulted his legal advisor.
Diesel will sue. Diesel on the bench. How good a team's
Simon
that?
Madden on the bench?
Yeah.
No interest in footy, though. Only 100,000 people have responded. What a great weekend of finals.
It was massive. And, to see a couple of... Well, they were upsets because of historical data, weren't they? But they're two teams that thoroughly deserve to be there on the second last weekend of the season. And I think we get 4 teams in pretty good form going at it.
What took your fancy over the weekend, Michael?
Well, Jared, it's an observation based on the first 2 rounds of the finals. Home and away season's too long. Always has been, but we're reminded at this time of year we've seen 5 engrossing encounters out of 6 so far. Shorten the home and away season by a month, extend the final series. Who wants to watch the bottom 4 or 5 teams go through the motions in the last month of the season? Well,
you know for a fact the metrics, as we're told, are not going to change in the game. So are you prepared to entertain the Gillon McLachlan idea that we're going to end up with a season of 17 games and then 6, 6 and 6 divided for the last 5?
My ideal would be 17 rounds. Everyone plays each other once, obviously, and then an extended final series of 7 weeks, which those who know the mechanics about it say that would work. That's the fairest way to play a final series. But they won't do that because, there's missing such a large chunk of the season. So I'm prepared to entertain the other idea to enliven the last 5 rounds.
OK, you're looking forward to you casting your experience and influence. Mike, what about you, Jason? What took your fancy?
Well, it wasn't so much as taking my fancy as something that's a recurring theme year after year after year. We see clubs drop out of the finals race, whether it be at grand final level or prelim or semi-final, because they can't kick straight in front of goals. Fremantle had a chance to put Port Adelaide away and they didn't. Too many regulation shots for goal that just seriously needed to be better. And we know against some of the more average sides, you can get away with it. But when you're playing the top quality sides at the business end of the season, if you don't take your chances, you get punished, and that's exactly what happened.
Couldn't agree more, Jace. And in fact, if Stephen Hill we'll see this kick later, if Stephen Hill had kicked a regulation goal just before half-time, the margin is 52-17 and the game's gone.
This is just a snapshot of the last 6 or 7 years. They're reasonably big games. They're all grand finals, prelim finals, and I included the semi on the weekend, where teams should have almost been in an unbeatable position and it got away from them. It's the one thing we haven't quite fixed in the game, Jared.
11-23 in a grand final. It is amazing. There's one other thing that needs fixing, Jason, and I hope Brad Scott and the North Melbourne boys are looking, because it's a tiny little thing, but we spend millions and millions of dollars preparing athletes, and let's have a look at some of the athletes who aren't prepared 100%. There is such a thing as long stops, but have a look at this. On basically a perfect night for footy, blokes go to ground, they lose possession of the ball. There's another one in the middle of the ground. Now, up at the ANZ Stadium, we know it is treacherous. So wear comfortable boots at your peril, folks, because it could decide whether or not you're playing in a grand final or not.
We've asked several coaches about this. I still think the coaches should make it mandatory. They should determine what blokes wear. Comfort can't always be the pre...
Good luck with that, the way the players are these days.
If Ross Lyon had seen his blokes falling over like that, he would have liked to say in it, wouldn't he?
It was Alan Jeans's pet hate. When you lose your footing, you're out of the contest, we're a man down. But these days, I think the players are very firm in their own choices and their own mind that they'll wear what they want to wear, and not that much you can do about it.
I hope we're not revisiting that very topic this time next week, but let's revisit the topic that has been the centre of attention for most of the weekend, and that is Boomer Harvey. He has been suspended today. He will miss the prelim final unless he is successful tomorrow night at the tribunal. Mike, they didn't give him any leniency at the MRP.
No, and nor would have I, Jared. I mean, I think the match review panel have rubbed him out on the basis that the incident was assessed as negligent low and high contact. He couldn't have wished for any better than that, but his history has thrown him out. He was able to escape with a reprimand if he had a clean history, but he didn't, and now he's out. But I think the majority view is that he shouldn't miss a preliminary final for that. I cannot understand A, why he did it, and B, that if there was insufficient force, well, he's caused the bloke to bleed. The bloke had to leave the field, Joel Selwood, and have his eyes stitched. I know you're not of this view.
No, when you've got tissue paper on your eyes, as Joel Selwood, I presume, has after being clipped there.
Well, you presume he
times.
has, yeah.
Well, I think you're entitled to presume that because he has been hit there a lot of times, and I'm sure that will be the defence because his only defence is that they got it wrong with the force. Now, last week, Mike, you were not happy with the MRP for exactly the reverse reason, and that is Tom Hawkins got let off. They said once again, insufficient force for a bloke who nearly had his jaw broken in 3 places.
But this was a horrendous decision. And we said last week, if Ben Stratton had fallen over, Tommy Hawkins misses 2 weeks of football, doesn't he?
Yeah,
now,
absolutely.
I understand. If I were at North Melbourne, and Scotty will have a view on this, I mean, he's going to lose a key player for not a major incident, and yet Tommy Hawkins nearly beat him at the weekend because he was allowed to play when he shouldn't have.
Well, I think the Kangaroos are entitled to go to the tribunal.
And they will go to the tribunal.
There have been too many incidents basically setting a precedent. I know precedent doesn't work, but there have been too many incidents that have set the precedent. Have a look at this one. Adam Goods, the hit on Joel Selwood, leaves the ground and hits him, you could argue, twice as hard as what Boomer Harvey did. You can see his head rocks back. He is a little bit groggy when he gets up, and that's the one thing that didn't happen on the weekend. Buddy Franklin again at the SCG. That's a fairly significant knock.
You've answered your own questions. They don't take precedents into account, and they're just wrong decisions.
Well, that is by the MRP. We are now dealing. Have a look at this one.
Sack.
I mean, you're talking about force, and that's the issue. They will go to the tribunal.
Spoiling action, that for any good defender, though.
The match review panel says,
you
Jason...
You can't get the ball, you take the back of the head.
It was the view of the... That was 30 years ago. It was the view of the panel that Dawson's action was a legitimate spoiling action and not a striking motion. No further action was taken. That's the second week in a row that Zach Dawson's escaped penalty when he probably should have gone. It was Buddy Franklin the previous week and Robbie Gray this time.
Well, if I was on a tribunal and North Melbourne came and presented their case and said insufficient force, have a look at this, I'd be moved to let him off.
Well, but I'm not sure how you can say that if a bloke has to leave the field, whether he's got scar tissue or not.
We're too over the top with the blood.
He's off the ground, he's bleeding, his eye is stitched, and North Melbourne kicks a goal while he's off. You don't think that's any impact?
I didn't say it wasn't an impact. We know it was an impact, but it's not about impact, it's about force.
Yeah.
All year the tribunal have argued, or the MRP, have let blokes off because of force.
Yeah, but they've been wrong.
So they have fingered the issue is force.
Yeah.
To me, Boomer Harvey's was insufficient force. If there was no blood, would he be still on the ground?
Well, there was blood.
If there was no blood, would he be playing?
But there was blood.
I understand that, but it's about force, not about blood.
What's your view?
Well, look, we're talking a lot of ifs and buts. I think we're all in heated agreement that no one wants to see him miss out for something as innocuous as that. But my opinion, I guess, is you've just come back from 3 weeks out. Why put yourself in that situation? The ball had gone the other way. Probably didn't need to do it.
OK, well, let's move on and talk about one of the great stories. Port Power, Port Adelaide have just been quite magnificent since Ken Hinkley and David Koch took over. And it just keeps on growing, this story, Mike.
It does. Look, it's a really feel-good story, isn't it? They were gone, though. They were dead set gone just before half-time, Port Adelaide.
Look at the impact in a couple of years that Ken Hinkley's had. I mean, that's ridiculous. The confidence that they have bred over there now, where everyone involved in that organisation believes they're all destined for success, and it just looks that way.
Yes, it's quite amazing to think that... I reckon 3 years ago, Mike, we were sitting on the couch saying that Port Adelaide and footy in South Australia itself was one of the biggest problems facing the AFL Commission. But not right now. They're making headlines for the right reasons.
Well, they were seen to be a basket case, and I don't think anyone dissented from that view at the time. And look, it gives you the faith that a Melbourne or a St Kilda can turn it around because we've seen the resurrection of this footy club.
If you can get a reasonable list where you identify some good young talent coming through and you get the right people there to develop it, and a man in charge or a couple of men in charge that actually are pretty vibrant about where they want to go and what they want to sell to their supporters, the sky's the limit.
I think everybody's thrilled that the form of Ollie Wines has continued. One of the best second years, I think we've said a couple of weeks ago. Mike compared him to some of the greats. Have a look at here. He's on one of the greats in Nat Fyfe, and Fyfe actually lets himself down. He doesn't trail Ollie Wines in. He's such a dangerous player. Poor handball coming from Barlow, just a nondescript handball. Lets Ollie Wines Wines in for a stoppage goal. Here's another one. Lachie Neale had a very good first half.
Doesn't do a lot wrong there,
No,
Lachie
except
Neale.
takes the front position.
Well, and then he gets pushed under it.
That's right. That's why he should have taken the back position. And once again, here he is at a stoppage. It's Fyfe and Wines continues to drive long to the goal square, and he's let off the hook by Nat Fyfe. It was a Joe the Goose, as you tend to call them, Jason, but a fine player indeed, and what a game he had.
I don't mean to increase the pain for the Melbourne supporters, but Jack Viney was rated at least the equal of this kid, and maybe better than him at the same time. It just shows it's fluky about which club you go to, isn't it?
It's been a bad enough year for the Demons already, Mike.
Don't go there.
It was an incredible turnaround at half-time because you couldn't imagine how bad Port were in the first hour of football.
This comes back to that belief we were talking about, because they were virtually dead and buried. The only thing Freo hadn't done was convert and put them away once and for all on the scoreboard. But the one thing that we've learnt with Ken Hinkley in Port Adelaide is they know how to run out a game. And they believe that they will always come back and attack and play a strong four-quarter brand of football. They did that, and then, you know, it started to really turn around. This is early on, though. They couldn't get near the footy.
No, they couldn't.
They didn't know whether they were coming or going. It was almost like they were shell-shocked. But then settled down at half-time and they were able to turn around. Freo, the only thing they didn't do was kill them on the scoreboard.
Is there a tipping point? I know it's first half and there's still half the game to go, obviously, but do you get to a point where almost your belief has got to go?
Well, you'd think 6 or 7 goals would just about do that.
That's the cut-off, isn't it? I mean, 30 points, just think we can still fix this, but any more than that, you've got the
You're genuinely concerned once it gets over that.
It was a shocking first half, though, and it was addressed by Ken Hinkley after the match.
We could have quite easily, possibly rolled over away from home against a great side. Amazing pressure they're putting on us, and to the boys' credit, though, they said to them at half-time, that's not us, that's not the way we're going to go down. If we're going to go down, let's go down the Port Adelaide way, and that's having a crack.
And have a crack they did, all the way to the prelim final. And the coach of Port Adelaide joins us on the line. Ken, it's been a remarkable story. Congratulations, a magnificent effort on the weekend. Welcome to the couch.
Thanks, Jared. Yeah, the boys were really strong on the weekend, in pretty tough conditions. We were lucky enough to come out on top.
A prelim final must have seemed so far away at half-time. Can you take us inside the room and your message? Was it confrontational? Was it encouraging? Give us an insight.
Oh no, it wasn't so much confrontation. It was more about the way we were not representing ourselves. We were playing football that was unfamiliar to Port Adelaide, and we just weren't playing the in-tight contested stuff the way we'd like. And then when we got it to the outside, we were a bit hesitant to take the game on. And so I said to the boys, and if we're going to go, let's go the way we've played all year, and make sure we give them a chance to play the football that we want to play.
Ken, it's unusual, though, to hear a coach say that he addressed his players and with a clear implication, we are in deep, deep trouble here and probably won't get out of it. I was surprised to hear you say that after the game. Don't you always have to sell hope?
Oh no, we talk in reality, Mike. We don't get mixed up in it too much. We say, well, the odds are if that's going to happen to us, at least let's go the way we should be playing and have a go at that. We're not frightened about the the outcome. We're more worried about the behaviours before the outcome. And if we get them right, as it turned out on the weekend, we'll end up with the result we want. Now we were playing really poor football, but I don't stop there. I say Fremantle were playing some really strong, hard defensive football, and they put us under enormous pressure.
Hey, Ken, I'd love to know what was happening in the coach's box, particularly in the first quarter. You've got Lachie Neale running around with his own footy. Nat Fyfe looks like he's going to grab the game by the scruff of the neck. It must have been a tough start to endure.
Yeah, it was, Jason. We just probably held on, and we had a bit of luck. Fremantle missed some opportunities, and that probably kept us in the game. We're not frightened to say that, but you're right. Lachie was getting a lot of the ball. Nat Fyfe's a star of the competition. We all know that, and they were providing enough service to their forwards. It was looking quite dangerous for us, but we were just finding a way to hang in there. And I think that's the scoreboard with them missing helped us, and then we kicked that goal just before half-time, which really helped. I
want to ask you about Chad Wingard, All-Australian last year, flattered by his standards this year. In fact, rounds 14 to 21, he kicked 5 goals in 8 games. Was he ever at risk of not being in this team?
No, Mike, no, he was never at risk of not being in the team. As long as he was buying into the defensive side of the game, we understood that he was not probably getting the scoreboard like he'd like it to be, but as long as he was contributing with the defensive stuff, we're okay with Chad. We know he's a pretty talented young player, but we just expect that we have to stick with players at that stage, and you don't just throw them out. We've probably got to support them and give them some support that he needs. He was getting some really close attention. He was probably for the first time in his career, he was he was down a little on his form, and he doesn't like that himself. So we just had to support him at that stage.
I want to take you just through a couple of centre bounces which I thought were so reflective of the game. There's a couple early in the piece where Nat Fyfe just hit the ball running, and the Fremantle Dockers were off and away. You could see there Stephen Hill absolutely dominated. Nobody really giving Lachie Neale any great coverage. And then after half-time, there was a classic Fyfe versus Ollie Wines, and Ollie Wines just was not going to let Fyfe dominate the play. And he whips the ball out, and it seemed that Broadbent kick-started your second half.
Yeah, no, it was a really good bit of play by Ollie. You know, he's one of the boys that have really stood up for us already in this final series. But that was the contest. We wanted to get our fingerprints on the ball after half-time and at least get down and get dirty, not let them push us out of the way. And they'd been doing that to us a bit in the first half, to be fair. So it was good signs for us that I think we got the first goal within about 30 seconds. So that was a really significant moment.
Hey Ken, speaking of significance, one of the things that I thought was most significant on the night, aside from how good Port was your reaction straight after the game. We see you walk out on the field, you put the hand down to tell someone to keep it down, then you called Travis Boak over very quickly, and you just got in his ear, almost like to say, hey, there's still a lot of work to be done. Let's not get carried away with the emotion just tonight.
Yeah, it's exactly what I did, Jason. It was more about to tell the boys that, and because you can imagine the excitement that they were going through their minds. They'd just played a semi-final away from home, come from behind and got a great win. But we needed to understand that was only one part of the job done. We've still got another bit to do, and we want to play for as long as we can. We know we've got another, really big challenge for us this weekend against the Hawks, and I wanted the boys to start thinking about the Hawks as quick as we could.
Ken, you've got a world-class run-with player in Kane Cornes, but Hawthorn have got 4 blokes that need close attention. Is Cornes going to go to Mitchell, Lewis, Smith or Hill?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Mike. This early, probably one of them, I'd imagine, somewhere along the line. But look, I suppose the important part for us is that we've got to challenge them a little bit too. They've got something to worry about with us too. We think with obviously with Boak and Wines and Hartlett and Ebert, we've got a bit there to hopefully challenge them back. The game won't be about 1v1 as far as Kane versus someone. It'll be about the team versus the team. And for us, we just got to make sure that we support Kane, whichever role we give him, and then support the players that they assign their pokes to.
Ken, it was a really high-quality clash when you beat Hawthorn at the Adelaide Oval a little earlier on in the season. What did you take out of that game that you can use this weekend?
That they had 5 great players missing, Jace, and that we're going to have to play a lot better than that to get anywhere near them. And I think they had Mitchell, Roughhead, Lake, Gibson, and one other just off the top of my head that were missing from that side. We understood that they were, and Clarko rightly points out that they were comfortable to have another crack at us at the right time. And we understand we're going to have to improve a lot from there to challenge the Hawks this week.
Jared mentioned Matthew Broadbent in passing before. I reckon you've got a lot of high-profile players that get a lot of attention publicly, but Broadbent to me is one of the success stories of the year. I mean, rebounding, his use of the foot, his willingness to run and his sense of adventure. He's been very important for you, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has, along with, I suppose, Mike, with the whole of the back 6, really. I mean, they're quite young down there when you look at them in total. And, with Pittard and O'Shea and Broadbent Jonas, and then you've got Trengove's only young himself, and Carlisle's our most experienced. And as you say, Broadie's played just over 100 games. And he's a pretty comfortable AFL player now. He knows what he needs to do to play at his best, and he is one of the important players for us, but he's one part of the group.
If you're Alistair Clarkson, Ken, would you risk Cyril Rioli?
No, Alistair, I wouldn't risk him. I'd put him away. And I hope he has to put him away for the year.
Well, we're all going to have to wait and see as to whether or not he fronts up at the MCG. It's been a great story so far, Ken, and we've been thrilled to share it with you over the last few minutes. Thanks for your time tonight, and good luck for the rest of the finals campaign.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Ken Hinkley, and what a story it has been. Let's get down to business, though. Is Cyril going to play or not?
Well, I've got to say that the Hawks Brain Trust has got a couple of tough decisions to make at the selection table. Rioli trained today. I think he trained reasonably well, but until he's put through his paces and goes flat stick and actually lets himself go, they won't make a decision based on today's
But
session.
eventually you can't put them through match conditions, can you?
That's right.
It is a gamble at the end of the day.
Yeah, but for me, it's not so much a worry about how much footy he's missed. I think he can have an impact not having that sort of week-to-week match fitness. To me, it's whether he's got the confidence in his body to let himself go and just bang.
So that fitness test, Jace, will that be as close to match simulation as you can get?
Well, I think they all need to see him just going without a care on the train track. And I mean, when the ball's there, you go 100 miles an hour.
And all that.
And when you see him go, you know whether he's really going or not. And look, if that doesn't happen this week, they won't play him.
And if they go with him, sub or starting?
It's an interesting one too. I'm sort of a little bit mixed in my opinions. I don't like the idea of playing him as a sub. I think you've got to be able to say, well, if he's going to play, he's got to play a whole game, because if you play him as a sub and someone goes down in the first couple of minutes, he's there. Having said that, if you think he can play a whole game and then you start him as the sub, you know, that might have some merit.
There's some clever smaller blokes who'll be wearing Port Adelaide colours that'll cause the Hawks some concern, won't they?
Absolutely.
Gray and Wingard and Mead.
They've got a lot of classy players, and they're all going to require attention. So the back six, whoever it might be, and Giray will be there, could be Burgoyne, could be Birchall. There's a number of players. They don't tend to go one-on-one for the entire game, the Hawks. We know there's a defensive structure there that'll give players the chop out at different stages, but a lot of it's going to do with the flow of the ball coming in, and if they're able to run upfield and not have the pressure on them to deliver the footy, they'll cut any team apart.
We saw Crowley do an amazing job, certainly in the first half on Boak at the weekend.
Yep.
Is Langford up to that role to go to Boak?
I think he is. I think he's improved. He's one of those. We've spoken about a few young players that are starting to make their names in finals, and I think Will Langford's one of those. Boak's the one I would send him to, but you know, Alistair Clarkson might have a different idea. I just think if you can take away the ability of the skipper to inspire, and he is certainly an inspirational player, I think that's a nice one to tick off. And I thought Crowley did a great job on it.
He did.
Ken Hinkley did mention players that weren't playing last time. There was some significant outs for Hawthorn, weren't there?
But for both sides. It wasn't just the Hawks that were missing. There were a number of Port players missing as well. So, and they're all playing this week, Jonas, O'Shea and Need.
I think looking at those lists, though, Jason, it's fair to say Hawthorn have got a bit more serious artillery missing than Port.
Yeah, but you don't win games on paper, Jared. You win them out on the park, don't you?
You're sounding more like a coach than ever before. Swans, Mike, they've got not too many issues. Nick Malcheski clearly is one. He's not so much in the Cyril camp, but would you throw him straight in?
Well, look, hamstrings, no matter how low the grade is or how high, they seem to be a minimum of 3 weeks, don't they? So I think they'd be cautious with him. But they're in the box seat, aren't they? I mean, they were the top team at the end of the season. They were the week's break and they're playing at home. They've got virtually a full list. And a couple of tall blokes forward. What are their names again?
Bondi, just refer to them as BB.
The Bondi Billionaires.
Bondi Billionaires. It may not be perfect weather for them. Rain is forecast, as we said earlier in the piece. And it did rain the last time that these two sides played. This one was at the SCG. In fact, it was almost cyclonic up there. And there are the figures as they were recorded, Jason.
I did that game up at the SCG, and I thought North Melbourne were absolutely brilliant. They just took them on and they never let up. It was a really good quality four-quarter performance.
The big issue there was that the Sydney Swans had 66 inside 50s to 48.
But it was the quality of them.
Poor.
And North always had numbers back. So Scotty Thompson did a brilliant job on Buddy Franklin. When Buddy went up the ground, he became the loose behind. And often it would be Buddy Franklin kicking the ball in and Scotty Thompson was there marking it. Now, every now and then there'd be a handover, so it's very rare that one player plays on an opponent for the entire 4 quarters, but Scotty Thompson's very good at reading the play.
So do you think Scotty Thompson would be assigned to Buddy, or do you think Greimer will get it?
Probably one you can ask Brad Scott when he comes in, but I'd play the same role that he did that day. When Franklin goes right up, you hand over, and then he becomes the spare behind the play.
But the difference is going to be that Kurt Tippett didn't play, which is suggested.
Which is why more so you need the drop-off, don't you, Jared, to give a chop out to the others.
Just before we go to the coach, Stuart, do you think we're underselling North? I mean, the public view appears to be that they can't win up there. Now, North haven't lost a game to the 3 other survivors in the premiership race. Are they getting their due credit?
I think they are. I think the Swans are entitled to go in as absolute favourites. They lost way back in round 4. It's a different Swans unit back then. The whole world was coming down on the Sydney Swans, and their form has been great. What North Melbourne have got now, Mike, is a genuine chance because they're playing really good football, and they're playing really good football at the right time.
I hope a few people turn up and watch them. I see there's 41,000 tickets still available at ANZ.
Yeah, well, that's an ongoing thing, isn't it? ANZ Stadium. We don't like the way that plays itself out, because I'd love to see a packed SCG hosting the final, but contracts dictate that won't be happening.
Well, whether you're on the ground or you're off the ground, make sure you wear your long stops because we don't want you slipping over. Brad Scott's going to join us straight after this.
Tonight's performance was as disappointing as a performance as I can recall. Regardless, as I said, of how the game looked, I was pretty proud of our boys today. The response three-quarter time this week was enormous. A pretty complete performance against an opposition that we clearly have enormous respect for. That's a function of our midfield being comprehensively outplayed. Our guys are pretty determined. Another determined effort tonight. Our ball movement was terrible. When we don't hold up our end of the bargain in the contest, we get beaten by anyone. An appalling effort early. When you dish up that sort of performance early on, you can't walk away happy or satisfied.
And North Melbourne are going to be into the preliminary final. What a match!
Played our best footy for the year, so we're going in with good confidence against, the really good sides, and we're playing our best footy when it matters.
Well, as you've seen a number of times on the couch, it has been an up and down season for the Kangaroos, but the good news for Kangaroo supporters is it's all up at this stage. Brad Scott has had a massive week. He joins us as he coaches into his first prelim final. Welcome to you, Brad.
Thanks, Jared. Thanks, boys.
What shall I call you, Foff? Father of Fletcher. It must be really thrilling to welcome the first son home, and Penny, your wife, obviously travelling well.
Yeah, she is, and Fletcher's going really well. It really puts things in perspective, no doubt about that. And
any reason why Fletcher?
Look, Penny gets what she wants, and that's the name that she liked, and I love it too. But it really does put things in perspective, and we're just over the moon.
Brad, had the baby been 4 days late and due on match day, what would you have done?
I would have been at the footy. I mean, we talked about that extensively, and Penny wouldn't have had it any other way, and she's got really great family support and my family support, so her instruction was, you do what you've got to do, you've got responsibilities, and get there as soon as you can.
OK, but you played in a premiership team with the bloke who pulled out of a semi-final, Daniel Bradshaw. His wife was having a baby. He pulled out. Lee Matthews, I don't think, was overly thrilled by the decision at the time.
No, he wasn't, but I think Lee understood that, it's an individual, personal decision, and, most coaches, and if it was me, the coach in that situation, the player makes his own decision and gets full support from the club, but Lee probably didn't see it that way, seeing as the next pre-season, he told us to make sure that...
time it better?
Players don't have unprotected sex with your wives in January.
I did not say that.
What a caring coach.
I said to Lee, I think that's a bit beyond your jurisdiction, but
no.
That's what he said. It was.
That is very good.
I laughed and he didn't.
Did anybody take any notice?
Well, we didn't have anyone miss a prelim after that.
Nice. You heard the top of the show. You heard Jared talking about the boots. Is there an ability to control the footwear that the players wear?
Oh, look, I mean, my message is pretty simple, and this is the easy part of coaching. My instruction is to wear boots that you don't slip over in. So, I mean, you should have multiple boots in your arsenal to take up and judge the conditions. And, most of the boot manufacturers make different sorts of boots, but they're not the old screw-ins that probably the four of us are used to. They're all moulded soles these days, but some are longer than others. So my instruction is to make sure you've got any number of boots for all conditions.
And do the players always obey?
Well, to my knowledge, they do.
Have you spoken to Burma about creating the situation and the dilemma that he's now in?
No, I don't think that helps in the situation right now. I mean, I spoke to him after the last incident only a month ago, and we're in this situation again. So, I don't think there's any point talking about it right now. I mean, we've got the MRP to go through, which has happened, and the tribunal tomorrow night. So there'll be a time and a place for that.
I take it the thrust of the tribunal appeal will be simply insufficient force, as has been the case for half a dozen other like-minded cases through the year.
Yeah, I suspect that too, but Jared, I'll let the baker bake the bread there. I mean, we've got people who are charged with the responsibility of making our case and putting the defence forward, and I'm not part of that. My job's to make sure that we're as well prepared as we can be for Sydney this week, and my focus is purely on that. I don't get too caught up in the MRP or the tribunal.
Can I take you through your forward line? I think your forward line is the thing that really has improved in the last few weeks. You've added a couple of players, and some of your other players like Drew Petrie have really found some good form. You seem to have divided and almost conquered, particularly Geelong, the way that the ball has gone in there a number of times. If we take a look here, you've got Lindsay Thomas, who is charging up the ground and does a really good U-turn to get onto the very first goal. Loses his player, Kelly, as we know. He's there for the Petrie handball, and he delivers a significant blow. Here he is again. This time he's charging up the ground, gets inside forward 50, and just goes to show the amount of coverage that players do run. Gets the handball over the top, which was not necessarily Kelly's fault, and delivers a great goal. But this is the one I really like, and it's Drew Petrie. Often a coach, I think, can say, work for each other, and it falls on deaf ears. But you can see everybody just creating some chaos here. And then eventually someone breaks out, the lead comes, the ball gets hit down into the right spot, and the goal is created.
Yeah, it's terrific vision, and we work really hard on that. Shane Watson's done a great job with our forwards this year and creating variety. And look, every team's got at least one or two really top-line defenders. And Harry Taylor's certainly one of those for Geelong, and that's not to undersell Lonergan and Rivers and Mackie either. But, you know, a lot of our players played roles for us to make sure that our forward line could function effectively, and Aaron Black's copped a bit of criticism this year for his form, but he's played some terrific team roles for us and did again on Friday night.
Scotty, when I watch North play and when I watch Port Adelaide play, the amount of run and spread that is coming, to me it almost looks like it's changing the way the game is going to be played over the next few years, at least in the immediate future. Do you feel that's a fair comment?
Yeah, I think it is. I made a comment probably 3 or 4 years ago that I really felt there was a subtle shift towards structured offence. You know, we talked so much about defence in the past, and a lot of coaches have been really defensively minded for good reason. And strong defences are always the foundation on which good teams are built. But to counter a really good defence, you've got to have a good structured offence, and we've worked really hard on that over a long period of time.
I want to ask you about Nick Del Santo. Poor first game, then very solid for probably 10 or 11 weeks, then a flat spot, an extended flat spot, and he's come good. Certainly his last 6 quarters have been very good. Did you see the need to talk to him about his output in the latter stages of the season?
Well, I've spoken a lot to Nick throughout the year, and not all of it has been me talking to him. I've asked him as many questions as he's asked me. We wouldn't be in the position we're in right now if it wasn't for Nick Del Santo. I mean, it's really... I don't think it's documented well enough that Andrew Swallow missed the first half of the year. Daniel Wells has missed basically the whole year. Zeebel's missed 6 games. I mean, Cunnington's had a terrific year. Greenwood's been great, but Del Santo, to a large extent, has helped hold our midfield together. So he's just been exceptional, and really his performance on the weekend is one of the primary reasons we got him to the club.
A couple of fancy performances there in finals, aren't they? Look at those numbers. They speak for themselves. Absolutely impressive. One thing that I found really amusing in the lead up to this game, Scotty, and I'm not sure how you took it, but there was all this talk about how they were going to exploit Todd Goldstein with run. He's a reasonable ruckman, isn't he?
Well, he's a very good runner too.
Yeah, correct.
I mean, he's a great tap ruckman. I mean, you know, I'd hoped he'd be in All-Australian contention this year, and he didn't make the squad. So, well, I think he's been fantastic for us for most of the year, but he's an exceptional athlete, great runner, really starting to believe in himself now and believe in his ability, and also have a really good understanding of the impact he has on games, and just did some exceptional work for us on Friday night.
Pretty happy with that mark in the end, were you? I mean, it looked like there was going to be a pack of 15 kept to contest that.
Well, you know, probably looked like it was going to be Goldstein or Hawkins, didn't it, the way Hawkins was going. So, you know, we really did try to push back to cover Hawkins, and Goldie did it really well on that occasion.
I was going to ask you about Hawkins. From where I sat on Friday night, I was surprised that you didn't appear to double team him. Did you try and it just didn't happen?
Oh no, I think there's a lot of things that go through your mind. I mean, you can double team him, but unfortunately you don't have 19 players. So if you double team him, you free up the other end, Mackie, Enright, Taylor, Varco. That's a dangerous game to play. Now, clearly late in the game, you know, we needed to change. So we did look to get a number back to give Grimer and Thompson some support, and Goldie did it really well the last play of the day.
Have you spoken to your players about the last 15 minutes of footy?
We talked about it a little bit today. We'll talk more about it tomorrow, but Look, I mean, Geelong had, I think it was 56 possessions in the last quarter, which is a really low number, but just were really efficient. We kicked 2 goals 5. I mean, we probably should have iced the game in the first 10 minutes of the last quarter. So, really, Geelong had 3 more scoring shots than we did in the last quarter. So, I don't think we were too far off the pace.
Kane Turner, I'd love to know what your expectations were when he first came to the club and you saw him and you thought, OK, this will be interesting, and to where he's come now. It's been exceptional.
It has. It's just outstanding. And my expectations were that we'd get him into the gym and we'd get him to see the nutritionist and put some weight on, because Bryce Lewis, our recruiting officer, said, look, we really want to draft this kid, but I need you to meet him before we draft him, because if we draft him and he walks into the club on day 1, you're going to have a heart attack. He looks like a jockey. He's 67 kilos, and I said, mate, you pick the talent. I mean, you back yourself in, and, when I saw his vision of the way he plays, he's fearless. I mean, that's...
His smother in the last quarter was incredible, wasn't it?
And he rises to the occasion. The bigger the stage, the better. He just absolutely loves it. And they're the players you want.
What do you think about the deliberate out-of-bounds rule, Brad?
I think it's a good rule. I mean, I don't think players should be able to deliberately take the ball over the line.
They get it right on Friday night?
I think that the hard thing for the umpires is to judge the level of pressure. And I've joked with Hayden Kenny. I mean, I said, I feel like throwing the ball to you and getting Jack Siebel to tackle you and see what you can do with it.
Well, Andrew Swallow there is getting twisted in a tackle from a clearance, throws it on the boot and gets pinged. There's 30 seconds left and you're in the box thinking we're just about out of trouble, and then it's coming straight back.
Yeah, but I mean, as a coach, you've just got to control what you can control, and I accept that umpires make mistakes.
But Nathan Grimer took it out deliberately just before that, didn't he?
He was tackled out of bounds, yeah, so you can't pay that deliberate against Nathan.
Because the instruction would be, if you're under pressure up near the boundary line, let him take you across, would it?
Well, Nathan didn't take it out, the tackler did.
Do you think Lindsay Thomas is paying for perhaps evils of the past with his acting for free kicks?
Yeah, there's no doubt about that, and that's a free kick. It's hands in the back, clearly a free kick. But Lindsay accentuated the contact. So my concern right from that incident was that umpires are going to think he's accentuating every contact. Now, I would think most people think that's a free kick, arms around him, but the umpires are now thinking he's
But you berated him. You led the charge.
Absolutely, yeah. For that reason, because if he hadn't done that in the past, I think the Kelly one would have been a free kick. So you make your bed, you lie in it.
OK, just before you go, interesting the dynamics with the opposition coach Friday night. When did you first have any contact with your twin brother?
When did I have contact? Well, he came in the next day to see little Fletcher in hospital. So, I made the joke during the week. I mean, Chris is welcome. Uncle Chris is welcome anytime. The Geelong coach can wait. And, we wear different hats, but we are very close. Everyone knows that. He's bitterly disappointed about losing, and I take no pleasure out of winning that game, from a brother-to-brother perspective. I take great pleasure for North Melbourne people, but no pleasure in getting one up on Chris. And I owe him a few anyway.
You probably do. Great to have you on board. We're hoping to speak to you again perhaps next week. The Scots have always been good to us, so we'll book you in for next week if you get across the line.
That's good to finally hold up my end of the bargain.
Terrific. Fourth, Scott joining us on the couch, father of Fletcher, Brad Scott. He's the coach of the Kangaroos.
We've made a lot of decisions and gone in a direction the last couple of years to give ourselves a chance every year, we hope, but always with one eye on the future. And even though we're really disappointed now, the last couple of weeks showed there were some signs with our younger players that, we're at least on the right track.
Muzungu, pressure causing the slip.
We need to get better at not fumbling, not dropping marks, and hitting targets and making good decisions.
But this time it won't come off.
We're not disappearing. I'm not sure the other teams behind us are just going to leapfrog us. And in fact, I'm really confident we'll come again.
History was made on the weekend. Both sides out in straight sets. Let's have a look at the two losers, Mike. Let's begin with the Dockers. Your thoughts?
A mitigating circumstance with the Dockers. No McFarlane, no Johnson. That really hurts them, doesn't it?
I don't think you can argue mitigating circumstances when you're 31 points up.
Yeah,
I think at that stage you've got enough in the bank to win.
Yeah, they certainly did blow it, didn't they? And they could have, that stat before, they could have been 52-17.
They could have
should have been.
Yeah, and look, we spoke about the poor conversion earlier on. There also, we heard Ross Lyon talking about decision making, and contributed to the conversion at different stages, and we saw players maybe being a little bit selfish. I mean, you've got options here, Stephen Hill. He can draw and give the hand pass to Pav on his left, or he can chip it over to Subin on his right.
Or he can kick the goal.
Or he can kick the goal.
Yeah.
But if you choose to kick the goal, you've got to kick it.
Yeah.
Now here's another one. You just see, if you had good vision,
that was
the ball
adventurous.
picks up
Yeah.
Chris Mayne, and that's a certain, or should be a certain goal, but given the way they were set shotting, probably nothing was certain on the day, but disappointing.
What I found interesting was people that fell back to the default position when the Dockers lose. Ross Lyon can't coach an aggressive style. He can't coach a positive style. That seems to me to be absolutely against what I keep seeing with Fremantle. 11-17, there's enough scoring shots. They went inside forward 50, 29 times in the first half, 20 in the second. The reason they lost was bad kicking, and their midfield got beaten again in the second half.
Yeah, and on the line point, they could have been the reigning premiers if they'd kicked straight to the grand final last year.
Yeah, true.
So I don't know, there's just a little something missing, but I do think we have to take into account 3 of their most important dozen players not being there.
Mind you, your bloke put him in a decent position, Jared. Your love child.
He's Aaron. He's not his.
Oh, please.
Hey, I own Aaron Sandilands, not you two.
The last couple of years you've finally jumped on his bandwagon after a decade of criticising him, Mike. I'm pleased that you finally got on.
He was the bloke at number 7 in the top 50 at the start of the year, Jared.
That's right. Yes, that's 2014.
Now, he was the most decisive player in the match, I reckon, while he was on the ground.
His second half of the season has just been superb. And you understand why any team that has him helping to deliver the footy to the midfield is going to be a chance, because he gives them first option. Oh, he's outstanding again.
Chips Frawley, he's headed over to the west.
Is that right? Is he headed for the west, or has he been over there for
Well, he's been over there, and I think that they've given them a big hard sell.
You wouldn't go and do that if, as everyone thought, it was signed, sealed and delivered virtually going to Geelong, would you?
I thought it was Geelong. I thought the deal was done at Geelong, and the words out of the Geelong player's mouth, not explicit, but you would get the impression that they expect him to go to Geelong.
But you wouldn't go to Perth to have a look at Freo's setup just to give lip service.
You would no. I agree with that.
And given that McFarlane's a chance not to go on, he's a perfect replacement if they can pick him up. But the side that has had the front running for him, Geelong, Mike, you've suggested all year essentially that they can't win, particularly when Vardy went down early in the piece. Their percentage said that they didn't play good enough footy for long enough, and on the weekend some of their lows were really low.
And if you keep getting into scraps where the final margin is 10 to 20 points, you're going to lose one, and that's what happened. They nearly pinched it, but they lost it.
Look at those numbers.
I think mentioned before about Selwell. I mean, you take him out of that, and they get beaten by a fair margin, don't they?
Absolutely.
And Caddy,
I thought there was one shining light, though, for the Cats. Josh Caddy, for me, is the one that's enhanced his reputation in the final series. And along with Selwood, he was the reason for a long time they're in the game, and he's the reason that Tom Horgan's got in the game. Have a look at a couple of these passes. You just saw one beauty. Here's another. He doesn't just do it a couple of times. There'll be a third one to follow this as well. Turned beautifully, agile, off one step, chip, perfect.
Look, when I said about Selwood, this bloke was the bloke who was, if they were going to pinch it, it was Hawkins, and he almost did. I mean, he is starting to exert the pressure that Plugger used to exert.
He's starting to toss players around.
He's a huge force in the game, and while he's there, they're going to be in contention.
What about their ruck division? They've got McIntosh up their sleeve, and despite the fact that they were dominated on the weekend by Goldstein, they still won the clearances, they won stoppages, they won centre clearances, they won scores from clearances. So it wasn't all...
How'd they do all that if Goldstein was that good?
Well, this is the point about hit-outs, I suspect, Mike, but the numbers show that there's a lot going right for Geelong, but if you're winning that and you still get done, then you've got some work to do.
Yeah, no, I think they've said a long time, I think there are cracks there. I mean, if your percentages are low 110s, you're not playing convincing football.
Now, I know we're focusing on the teams that are left in the competition, but there's a few things happening at other clubs. Jared, are we allowed to get a few of those issues from our resident scoop journalist here?
Is that me?
I want to ask you about the Bombers first and foremost.
Yeah.
Bomber Thompson. I think there was a story already that he's accepted a new role.
Not so, Jace. No.
So where are we at with Bomber?
That is almost football's most intriguing question, I reckon. Now, I don't mean to be seen to be destabilising Gold Coast, and I really like Bluey. But I just keep hearing that all isn't settled there and that Bomber is in the wings.
What I find interesting about the whole Bomber chat is that it feels like they're trying to create a position that is...
When there isn't one.
There isn't one there.
Yeah.
He's a football coach.
Yes, correct.
He's not a bloke who's going out to look at young kids or he's going out to develop programs, etc. He seems to me to be at his best, a bit like Sheeds when he's got the boots on.
Couldn't agree more with that. But we do know, do we not, Jason, that he hasn't signed with the Bombers. And if they're trying to create... I'm totally with you. If they're trying to create a position, it's not going to work. How's it going to sit with Neil Craig? How's it going to sit with James Hurd?
OK, so take us up to the Gold Coast. There's been rumblings about Bluey for a week now since you spoke about it.
I didn't start it. I mean, but you know, there's things you just hear. This one doesn't go away. That there's a fairly serious review of situations on the Gold Coast.
So it went from a standard review to a full-blown review to all positions being considered again.
Well...
And Blighty's overseeing things.
Yeah, and I'm not smart enough to predict what Blighty's going to do. But he will have a massive influence on what happens on the Gold Coast.
Suggestions out of the kennel that there are some rumblings and things need to settle down.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. We've talked before about the Bulldogs going under the radar, which they don't deserve to do. They've had a poor season, and I think their returns in the last couple of years haven't been good. And I'm keeping, again, this is just the scuttlebutt, that the senior players and the coach are at odds, and he's not happy with what they've delivered, and they're not necessarily happy with what's coming from him.
It's always difficult from the outside, but from the outside, it looks like the timing is about right for that to happen. I mean, the coach would need to start fingering a few of these senior players because the results just haven't been there.
No, they haven't been there. No, and I mean, the names we keep hearing, I mean, Minson and Boyd primarily, and I think I also did hear that Brendan McCartney had been pretty tough on Ryan Griffin. Now, I think Griffin, to me, has had a really interrupted season.
So these are the post-season reviews we're talking about?
Yeah.
What about Pat?
Sorry, go on. You
go on. Finish off
the Paddy Ryder situation is really interesting. The federal court decision on Asada comes down on Friday.
Yeah.
If in fact the judgment supports Asada's role in this and the evidence is relevant and acceptable, does that not open the floodgates? Does that not clear the way for Paddy Ryder in the first place and others who might want to follow suit to leave Essendon?
Well, I think if you want to leave Essendon, it would open the door. But the issue is, from all reports, particularly from Brendan Goddard, that most of these guys are happy and they're going to stay.
Well, the Ryder thing has legs, doesn't it? There's no question about that. What about if Ryder goes to Asada and either gives them more evidence or says you can use my evidence and I'll take the guilty plea, and takes 3 months and then is clear by Asada and is able to play next year?
I think that's where it becomes a really interesting issue, because I don't think another club is going to invest a large amount of money and a long-term contract in a player without a guarantee that they're going to be available to them.
Agree, yep.
So what are your expectations? All is on hold until Friday's decision.
Correct. But if, and this is, no one can guess what the judge's decision is going to be, but I think if he does endorse Asada's role, I think they need to batten down the hatches at Windy Hill.
OK, let's move on to more pleasant issues. Tomorrow night we're back again. It will be the Virgin Australia 2014 AFL All-Australian team. And as always, Michael, you'll be there assessing the performance of the selectors. Where do you think the flashpoints may be?
There'll be plenty of them. There may be 6 new backmen. But you can't, all the contenders, it's like every year,
I reckon
them all in.
There's as much controversy in the All-Australian team as there in Mike's top 50 at the beginning of the year, which you know the response that gets.
I am familiar with that.
All-Australians are a bit the same, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's good. I like it when it's when there's a few new names come out.
I love it too. Are you surprised at any particular name not in the squad itself, Jason?
Off the top of my head, no.
I was disappointed for Shane Mumford. I thought Mummy had an outstanding year. He won the best and fairest. Thought Nathan Jones could have got in 3 BNFs in a row. But there'll be more to debate tomorrow night. And don't forget, it is on from 8:30. And then a special edition of The Couch. And, of course, it always follows AFL 360. We're going to take a break. Mike's not that mad at the moment, but he's going to be really mad after this.
The off-season of 1996-97, Adelaide appoints Malcolm Blight coach. You say they will win a premiership.
They've got the side for it. All they need is one bloke to go and do it, and that's Blighty.
So the coach can make that much difference, can he?
Oh, yeah, he can make a lot of difference. It was interesting when Blighty, when he'd come with his Monday speech, on a Monday morning said, I think we can win. We'd get beat. if you come in and said, we're going to win this week, we'd win.
So to get into your head, to convince you...
Yeah, convince you. Kenny Hinkley does it at, we're the fastest side in the competition. Yeah. So they start believing it, the players, whether it's true or not. You know, it's just that positive reinforcement, we're the fastest, and he says it all the time, and I just giggle to myself, because it's a Malcolm Blight throwaway line.
The 1989 Brownlow medalist, Paul Couch. He was a great player and he's great company, so don't miss Open Mic coming up straight after this. He would have given you a few laughs.
I really enjoyed Couchy. Yeah, he was great. You'll enjoy it. Now, I'm not overly mad, just a bit bemused, and Luke Darcy is in my sights. Now, Luke obviously has the view that come September, you can put the rule book on the bookshelf. Matty White's steaming around the boundary line in the Port Adelaide game. Let's listen to the commentary.
Ollie winds to White. White, the speed machine, takes on Pearce. Did he run out of tarmac?
Oh, he's called too far. Too far. Oh, that's a horrible call. There's no sense of occasion, the umpire. Maybe he did run slightly too far. But
now, sense of occasion. What? So we nearly pay spectacular leaps for marks, and we nearly pay goals that have just missed and all that sort of stuff. I mean, it's a 15-metre. You're allowed to run 15 metres, aren't you? Be it March, April, May, June, July, August or September.
Strikes me as a soft man.
Yeah, but the other one.
He's had a lot of great mad minutes.
Luke's never seen...
But at the moment, this isn't one of them, Jackson. I hope it's got Part B.
The other one, Part B with Luke, he's never seen a bloke who deserves to be suspended. Now, the latest one is Selwood, but week after week, Luke's prepared to let them all off. So, I'm not saying it's the best one of the season.
That's true.
Was that your idea or Billy's?
I think you've had a bad one there, Mike. Give us your tips, see if you can improve. No, in fact, you did well last week.
5 from 6.
All right.
I think Sydney win and Hawks just.
Jason, who's going to win out of North Melbourne and Sydney?
Look, nothing would surprise me whether this year's gone, but I'll tip Sydney.
Well done, fellas. We'll see you tomorrow night. And don't forget the Virgin Australia All-Australian team tomorrow at 8:30.